My wife and her lover pushed me out of my own company. They forgot to check the client contracts. My wife and her boyfriend, who also happened to be my COO, thought they had staged the perfect coup. They want to fire me and take over the agency I built from nothing. They were popping champagne before they even realized what I had done 3 years ago. They forgot to check the contracts, specifically the key person clause. Most people think revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. Revenge is best served legally, and with absolute, crushing precision. To understand the fall, you have to understand the height. We were untouchable. Sterling and Miller Consulting. We weren't just a firm. We were the gold standard. We handled crisis management for Fortune 500s. We fixed problems that didn't exist on paper. Our office occupied the top 3 floors of the skyline. Glass walls. Italian marble floors that echoed when you walked to dress shoes. The smell of espresso and money. I was the face. The rainmaker. I brought the clients in. Mark, my chief operating officer, kept the trains running on time. Mark was my roommate in college. I was the best man at his wedding. When his first startup failed, I was the one who pulled him out of debt and gave him a desk. I gave him a purpose. And Sarah? Sarah was my wife. But she was also the chief financial officer. We were a triad. A perfect, efficient machine. Or so I thought. Looking back, the signs were there. The lingering glances across the boardroom table during quarterly reviews. The way their schedules started to synchronize perfectly. Late nights preparing for the audit. Emergency client dinners, where my invitation mysteriously got lost. I didn't want to see it. I was too busy building our empire. I was too busy securing the future they were planning to steal. Let's rewind. 3 years ago, I was sitting in a negotiation with Titan Heavy Industries, our biggest potential client, a contract worth $5 million a year in pure retainer fees. The CEO of Titan, an old-school shark named Mr. Vance, leaned across the table. The air in the room was stale, smelling of old cigars and tension. He looked me in the eye and said, "Daniel, I don't trust agencies. They bloat. They delegate. I'm hiring you. I want your brain. If you leave, I'm stuck with a bunch of juniors who don't know a crisis from a catastrophe." He wanted assurance. So right there, on a napkin, I drafted the language. The key person clause. It stated, quite simply, in the event that Daniel Miller is no longer the primary lead consultant or is terminated from the provider, the client reserves the right to terminate this agreement immediately. Without penalty. Without notice. Mr. Vance signed. But then I did something paranoid. Or maybe it was intuition. I went back to our legal templates. I added that clause to every single contract. Every new client. Every renewal. But I knew Sarah was sharp. She audited everything. So I didn't put in the main service agreement where she watched the revenue percentages. I hid it in the miscellaneous addendums, sandwiched between force majeure and arbitration. The boring pages nobody reads. For 3 years, that clause sat there. A dormant virus in the system, waiting for a trigger. The day it happened, the office was unusually quiet. It was a Tuesday. It was raining. The kind of gray, relentless rain that streaks the glass and makes the city look like it's melting. I walked into the boardroom for our 9 a.m. strategy meeting. Usually, the room is bustling. Juniors setting up slides. Coffee being poured. Today it was empty. Just the 2 of them. Sarah sat at the head of the table. My seat. Mark sat to her right. There was a folder in front of my usual spot. A thick, black folder. I stopped in the doorway. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Suffocating. "Close the door, Dan," Mark said. He didn't look at me. He was focused on his Mont Blanc pen, twirling it between his fingers. Over and over. Flash. 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 I closed the door. The latch clicked like a gunshot. "What's this?" I asked, walking to the chair. I didn't sit. Sarah finally looked up. Her eyes were cold. Not angry. Just empty. Like she was looking at a spreadsheet that needed to be balanced. "We've had a vote," she said. Her voice was steady. "The board met last night. Without you." "The board?" I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. "Sarah, we are the board. Me. You. Mark. And we hold 60% of the voting shares," she replied. It was 2-1. I looked at the black folder. I opened it. The first page was a termination letter. Effective immediately. The second page was a buyout offer. It was insulting. Pennies on a dollar for my equity. "Gross negligence," Mark said softly. "Mismanagement of company resources. We're framing it nicely, Dan. If you sign, we keep it quiet. You get a payout. You walk away. And if I don't, then we release the internal audit," Sarah said. "We ruin your reputation. You'll never consult in this town again." I stared at them. My wife. My best friend. I could see the tension in Mark's jaw. He was waiting for me to explode. He wanted me to scream. He wanted me to throw the chair through the glass wall. If I reacted, they won. I felt a strange calm wash over me. It was the feeling of a sniper adjusting for windage. I picked up a pen. The scratching sound on the paper was deafening in the quiet room. I signed. I slid the folder back to Mark. Okay, I said. Mark blinked. He looked at Sarah. They were confused. That's it. Mark asked. That's it, I said. You want the company? It's yours. Security was called. That was a nice touch. They wanted to humiliate me. I had 10 minutes to clear out my office. I didn't take much. My Rolodex? No. I had that memorized. My laptop? No. They'd wipe it anyway. I took a photo of my father. I took my favorite coffee mug. And I took my coat. The walk to the elevator was a gauntlet. The staff knew. They always know. Heads bowed. Eyes averted. The rhythmic clatter of keyboards seemed to stutter as I walked by. I saw the juniors I had trained. The assistants I had hired. None of them looked at me. They were afraid of the new regime. At the glass doors, I turned back. Sarah and Mark were standing on a mezzanine, looking down, like emperors on a balcony. Sarah had her hand on Mark's lower back. A possessive, intimate gesture. They thought they had just acquired a goose that laid golden eggs. They didn't realize they had just severed the head. The elevator doors closed. I didn't go to a bar. I didn't go to a hotel. I went to my lake house. It was off the grid. Quiet. I set up a folding table in the living room. I opened my personal laptop. I had a list. The agency had 40 major clients. But the revenue, the real money, came from just 12 of them. The whales. Titan Heavy Industries. Apex Pharma. The Sovereign Group. These 12 clients represented 90% of the firm's cash flow. And every single one of them had signed a contract with clause. I poured myself a glass of water. No alcohol. I needed to be sharp. I waited 24 hours. I let Sarah and Mark have their day. I let them send the company-wide email announcing my departure to pursue other interests. I let them sit in the big chairs and spin around. Then, on Thursday morning at 8 a.m. sharp, I started dialing. I called Mr. Vance at Titan first. Daniel, his voice boomed. I got an email from your wife. Says you're out. What the hell is going on? It's true, Jim, I said. My voice was calm, regretful. Hostile takeover. I was forced out by the board. I have no control over the accounts anymore. Mark is taking over your strategy. Mark. Vance spat the name out. The guy with the spreadsheets? He doesn't know the first thing about our labor disputes. I know, I said. Look, Jim, I'm legally obligated to tell you that I can no longer service your contract. However, I'll let the silence hang there. However, Vance prompted. You should check page 42 of your master service agreement. Paragraph 4. Subsection B. I heard the rustling of papers. The phone clattered to a desk. A few seconds of muttering. Then, a low whistle. Son of a bitch, Vance whispered. I can walk. You can walk, I confirmed. Today. Right now. No penalty. And if I walk, where do I go? I can't wait 6 weeks for procurement to onboard a new vendor. You don't have to, I said, leaning back in my chair. I just registered a new LLC this morning. Miller Strategy. Just me. No board. No overhead. I can't get a new vendor contract past legal that fast, Dan. You have a discretionary CEO emergency fund, don't you? For crisis consulting. Yeah. Up to $1 million without board approval. Pay me out of that, I said. We bypass procurement for 90 days. By then, the paperwork will be sorted. Send the invoice, Vance said. I'm firing them within the hour. I hung up. 1 down. 11 to go. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall in that office. By noon, the atmosphere must have shifted from celebration to absolute chaos. It starts with a ping. The general counsel for Titan Industries sending a formal notice of immediate termination via DocuSign. Sarah would have been the first to see it. She would have frowned. Titan was $5 million a year. That's a huge hit, but they could survive it. We can fix this, Mark would say. We'll get on a plane. We'll smooth it over. Then, the second notification hits. Apex Pharma. Terminating. Citing the key person clause. Then the Sovereign Group. Then Blue Sky Logistics. By 2 p.m., the general counsel's inbox was a graveyard. Notification after notification pinging endlessly on Sarah's iPad. The phones would be ringing. Not with new business, but with confused account managers asking why their system access had been revoked by the clients. They were hemorrhaging. A consulting firm has massive overhead. That fancy office. $40,000 a month. The staff payroll. $200,000 a month. The insurance. The leases on the company cars. It all relies on cash flow. And I just turned off the tap. At 4:30 p.m., my phone rang. It was Mark. I watched it ring. I watched his face pop up on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Sarah. I'll let that one go too. Then the text started coming. Mark, Dan, we need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding with the contracts. Mark, you can't poach the clients, Dan. That's a lawsuit. I chuckled. I wasn't poaching. I didn't solicit them. I simply informed them of their contractual rights. They approached me. I finally picked up on the 10th call. Hello. Daniel. Mark's voice was high-pitched. He was breathless. I could hear the chaos in the background. Phones ringing. People shouting. Dan, what did you do? He screamed. Titan just pulled the plug. Apex is gone. Everyone is leaving. It's just business, Mark, I said, echoing his words from the boardroom. You wanted the company. You have it. We have nothing, he yelled. Without the clients, we have nothing but a lease and a lawsuit. You sabotaged us. No, I said coldly. I protected the clients. They signed on for me, not for you. You forgot the golden rule of consulting, Mark. The asset isn't the building. It isn't the logo. The asset goes home at night, inside the elevator. We'll sue you. Sarah's voice came from the background. She was crying. We'll sue you for everything. Read the contracts, Sarah, I said. Page 42. You have no revenue. You have payroll due in 3 days. Good luck. I hung up, and then I blocked the number. The speed of the collapse was terrifying. Without the revenue from the whales, they couldn't make payroll that Friday. When you miss payroll in a high-end agency, the talent walks. The juniors, the analysts, the secretaries, they clear their desks by Monday morning. Sarah and Mark tried to secure an emergency loan, but banks look at cash flow projections, and their projections were zero. They were personally liable for the office lease. 5 years remaining on a prime downtown real estate contract. That's millions of dollars of personal debt. I heard through the grapevine that the fighting started within a week. Mark blaming Sarah for not vetting the addendums. Sarah blaming Mark for pushing me out too early. The affair didn't survive the bankruptcy. It's hard to be romantic when you're losing your house. 6 months later, I walked back into the lobby of my old building. I wasn't there as an employee. I was there for the liquidation auction. The office was a ghost town. The logo, Sterling and Miller, had been scraped off the glass wall, leaving a jagged, dusty outline. Strangers were walking around, tagging furniture with price stickers. I walked into what used to be my office. My old chair was there, a Herman Miller Aeron, adjusted perfectly to my height. And there, standing in the corner, was Mark. He looked 10 years older. He hadn't shaved. His suit was wrinkled. He was holding a box of personal effects. He looked at me. His eyes were red. You planned this, he rasped. From the beginning. You knew. I didn't plan for you to betray me, Mark, I said. I just planned for what would happen if you did. I walked over to the auctioneer. How much for the chair? I asked. $50, the guy grunted. I pulled out a $50 bill and handed it to him. I rolled the chair past Mark. I stopped for just a second. Sarah called me. I said quietly. She wanted to know if I needed a CFO for my new firm. Mark flinched like I had hit him. What did you say? He whispered. I told her I handle my own books now. I pushed the chair into the elevator. The same elevator I had taken down 6 months ago. The doors closed. And for the first time in a long time, the silence was beautiful. They say you shouldn't burn bridges. I say, sometimes you have to burn the bridge to stop the enemy from following you. I run Miller Strategy now. It's small, it's lean, and it's mine. And every contract I sign still has the clause. Because you never know who is waiting in the wings, holding a knife and a bottle of champagne.